Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Joe Jason. This is Mark. We are going to have a nice, candid discussion on open source software today. I think we'll run through the agenda real quick. Mark and I will give just a 30-second intros. I'll ask him a few questions about his past, then maybe some questions of present tense and the product sets in his company, future tense, initiatives, and then some audience questions as well. We're going to also survey the group after we give our introduction, so get ready for 2 questions from us, please. So, Mark, would you please just give a general overview of what you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure, with pleasure. So I'm founder of both Ubuntu and Canonical, the company behind the platform. I'm really motivated and inspired by the idea that we're seeing this complete convergence of platforms from the cloud, through PC, through tablet, handheld form factors, all of those converging to create a sort of seamless environment for developers, seamless environment for commerce, and really the idea behind Ubuntu is to create a platform that can be consumed very, very easily both by users and developers with that complete convergence in mind.
Come on, share with us a little bit about the dynamic biography that you have.
So you mean the International Space Station?
Yeah, and there's some other, where you live is very exciting as well.
Yeah. So I grew up in South Africa and was very fortunate during the growth of the internet to take a strong interest in e-commerce. So I built out a lot of the infrastructure or the identity infrastructure that was used outside of the US for identifying parties in e-commerce transactions. So I have a strong interest in security, and with what we see today around PRISM and sort of widespread surveillance and concerns about security in the mobile context, that's a subject that's very close to my heart. Took the opportunity to go to space, and then dived in with Ubuntu.
Okay, excellent. And you founded Canonical Ubuntu what year?
2004.
Okay. All right. Once again, my name is Joe Jason, partner with a small seed investment firm that focuses on USA and China. We call it DNA because our tagline is that we invest in people first. People, product, and marketplace. That's how we rank them. We invest in USA and China, and we're located, our headquarters here in San Francisco, and we're open to talk to anyone about digital media distribution companies, digital media. My background is, 15 plus years in mobile. I've worked for 2 mobile operators. I've done a mobile software startup company, had a decent exit in it, and I chair the SV Forum mobile software developer group here in Silicon Valley. So let's get started with a couple questions to the audience, and they're developer related and some business. So since I can see the audience, since we can see the audience, could you just raise your hand if you consider yourself a developer, please? Excellent. I would say we're at around 10 to 20%. Okay. And then, who in the audience has heard of Canonical/Ubuntu? All right. So more, that was probably 30%, I would say. Okay. Excellent. Okay, well, let's jump into our questions. I think your passion around open source is exciting. I'm a Nokia N9 MeeGo user, which is 100% open source. Tell us the undercurrent for the reason why you founded this OS.
Well, so at the time, 2001, 2002, when I was thinking about all of this, orbiting and thinking about all of this, I thought that the fundamental change that was going to be coming was a shift in business models away from licensing software towards any number of other service-driven business models. And I think that remains the sort of a really interesting question in mobile and other technology fields is, what's the evolution of the business model? So in a world where the business model is moving away from licensing, open source software seems to offer some tremendous advantage. You distribute the cost of creation of the software across any number of groups that share aligned interests. you have a much better story in terms of transparency and security, and you have a greater sort of surface for innovation, right? You have you live in an ecosystem where innovation can come from any company, not just the company that had the right idea at the beginning. So all of that made sense. It was enough of a thesis to get started. Today, it's very interesting. I think that shift has happened. Licensing is a decreasing force in the software economics generally, certainly as people look forward. And with the emergence of cloud infrastructure and the ability to essentially charge for the utilization of software and some of the other business models, I think that thesis holds true.
Okay. All right. So you're a proponent of the cloud and subscription model around cloud?
Well, so we think the majority of what runs on Amazon EC2 is running on Ubuntu. So we're very close to that way of thinking about infrastructure. The majority of the OpenStack clouds that are being built, many of them by telcos, many of them by carriers, to be as backends for mobile applications. The majority of those are being built on Ubuntu. And obviously the economics of that are very different to the economics of building on something like Windows or a more proprietary version of Linux. And I think it's interesting to sort of bring some of that flexibility and openness to the mobile field as well.
Okay, all right. Well, with that, there's kind of a pointed question here about cultivating the community, the communities that you've been talking about, and the developer community and the mobile operator community. And so please tell us what specific steps you're taking to cultivate the developer community. And then I know you also have a carrier advisory group. So cultivation of developers, and then how do you migrate that into operators?
So developers run laptops, and for folks developing for either cloud, web, or Android, Ubuntu is very much a preferred platform. So we have a very unusual relationship with both the cloud and mobile, Android mobile developer audience, in that many of them know Ubuntu, they run Ubuntu, they use it. A lot of the big brands have teams of hundreds of developers running Ubuntu every day. And we think that we'll be able to offer them a very straightforward way to develop for both Android and Ubuntu for phone, tablet, and PC, off the same code base. So it's not really a port per se. On the carrier front, we took the view that what we wanted to do was learn what carriers were looking for, so we set up an advisory group. I think 12 carriers, a couple of major brands from the US, Europe, and Asia have all joined. And so that provides us with a good sounding board and also a private line of communication to educate ourselves about what carriers are looking for. And we're doing the same with handset manufacturers at the silicon and device level. Okay.
So your 14.04 version just came out, and you decided to launch it, not launch it, but once again, cultivate, I'll use that word again, in Seoul, in Korea.
Yes, so we, obviously Seoul Korea is a very sophisticated market, and it's a market that's hungry for innovation. There's a lot of thinking there about both the back-end cloud infrastructure and the mobile infrastructure as well, so that's a market, which is very receptive to Ubuntu. Other markets that I think are interesting for us in Europe, Germany, the UK, here in the US, Brazil, Ubuntu is very, very well known in Brazil, and of course China.
In continuing the discussion about developers, where do you see the most growth or activity from the developers in the world? Most attention. Where do you get the most attention?
So I think the US is a real sort of hotbed of support for us to get into open source infrastructure 5 or 10 years ago. It was challenging, I think, in some of the emerging markets. So we're only just starting to see the ramp of developers in those markets, largely because of Android. And the alignment between Android and Ubuntu is pretty good from a developer perspective. On the cloud, again, Europe and the US are the sort of hotbeds of innovation, as best we can tell.
Okay. That's interesting, because then you get the most momentum from US and Europe, but then you do your launch in Korea.
So we think that the emerging markets are where growth is. Certainly our carrier partners are very focused on emerging markets, and you know, some of the carriers and handset manufacturers that are very strong in their own markets are, you know, keen to look beyond those borders, and that's perhaps something that we can help them with.
Have you been getting any attention from Chinese handset manufacturers?
Certainly, we're aware of at least 3 companies that have done internal bring-ups of Ubuntu on their next generation devices and taken that to carriers. You'll be familiar with the dance, essentially. Internal innovation and R&D teams will bring up new platforms and then you know, walk potential carrier customers through that. We don't have full visibility on that. Ubuntu is an open platform, so they can take it, consume it, and customize it, integrate it, without necessarily engaging us. So you know, that's, you know, both an upside and a downside, you know, of the generous terms under which we license the platform. But you know, we have every reason to believe that we'll be able to pick launch partners both at the carrier and device level.
Okay. Looking at the landscape of OSs, mobile OSs, so we look at Yola, Jolla, Yola, and we look at Tizen and Mozilla, Gecko, and I think in Silicon Valley, at least, and some other major areas, where the developers are looking for a dialogue with these companies. So Tizen's starting to do some events in Silicon Valley. Yola is making their launch in China. How do you expect to have a dialogue with your ecosystem of mobile?
Well, I think that's very important. It's something that, being an open platform, comes a bit more naturally to us, I think. You know, we did that crazy Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign to make a next generation device. And the reason we did that was, you know, in talking with potential manufacturing partners, they were very interested in this idea of crowdsourcing, whether it's code, whether it's ideas, and so on. And we pitched to them the idea of essentially using crowdsourcing, crowdfunding as a signal for what the market looks for. And they said, that's a very interesting idea, why don't you do it? And it does, that sort of engagement comes naturally to us. So, you know, developers, we like to learn from developers. We open up so developers can participate. If they think that Ubuntu could be better, it's very easy for them to make it better.
That is a very good point.
Yeah.
You have the ability to go top down from the OEMs and the mobile network operators, from the bottom up, and doing Kickstarter initiatives.
Yeah. So for this 1.0 of our phone release, we identified a couple of core applications, and we had fantastic participation. Each app had 20 to 50 developers helping to shape it. But more interestingly, Evernote said, "Hey, this is a really interesting idea. You know, are there any developers who'd like to participate in shaping an Evernote app for Ubuntu?" And we had something like 150 developers stick their hand up for that. So I think there's a lot of energy out there. People are hungry for alternatives. In the case of Ubuntu, you know, the platform is well known, so it's not like a whole new learning curve for people. I think it'll be fun.
Well, come on, one huge caveat on the Kickstarter. Bloomberg committed to $80,000 in that initiative.
That was a great endorsement.
It certainly was.
They're a very forward-thinking company. If you visit their offices, they clearly invest in technology. And I think they were kind of fascinated with the idea of a mobile device, you know, a one-handed device. It's a phone in your pocket, in your hand. But it is effectively running a full PC operating system. It's the same operating system that's running a huge number of the world's web servers. So, you know, it's industrial-grade security. And it provides you with a great mobile experience, but also a full PC experience. So someone with that device can sit down at any worktop and have their full PC essentially provided off the phone. And you can stream Windows applications to that using client technology. So I think they're very interested in what they would do to process management, security, data protection, and so on.
I think this is a real key point that we need to highlight significantly is from the launch and your vision with this is the same OS for multiple devices and even the server side in the cloud. Before you make a comment on that, you've been quoted recently in the press stating that you think that Apple may go this route of convergence. Other OSs may go this route. To me, it makes sense. One guy on planet Earth, in my opinion, to merge Chrome and Android. Microsoft seems to be getting to this point of doing the same thing as your initial launch vision. Could you just expand on that, please?
Well, sure. I think there are two opposing forces that are both interesting. One is, we're getting to the point where, from a physics point of view, your mobile can drive all of your personal computing experiences, your tablet, your PC, the silicon in your mobile will be able to drive all of those. Possibly terrible news for Intel, possibly not, but certainly interesting. And classically, those points of convergence, the market finds ways to embrace them. On the other hand, the economics of making any device smart are getting better and better. So you have one force that says carry only one device, and that can give you everything you need. You have another force that says put a smart screen everywhere. Your TV, your fridge, your car. And I think those two forces will find a way to dance around each other. But what we wanted to do is make a platform for developers that can go everywhere. So right out of the box, you can make a tablet experience, you can make a phone experience, you can make a fridge experience, a car experience, very straightforwardly. And two, design the user experience in such a way that it feels great across that full range. And that was, I think, the harder part, was to build a user experience which resonates with people. I know you're a fan of Ego. Everybody has their sort of favorites and the things that they know. But it's the most gratifying thing for me is when people get the Ubuntu device in their hand, whether it's a phone or a tablet. We film people meeting Ubuntu, and it's kind of lovely to see how they dive into it and how it clicks for them across that range. So
the keyword there being seamless, I believe.
The designers talk about responsive, so you can make a website now that feels good on a phone, it feels good on a tablet, it feels good on a PC. So why don't we have the whole experience of the PC able to respond to those different ideas? And so I think we certainly have a head start on everybody else. On the Apple front, I think you've clearly seen harmonies between their PC experience and their mobile experience. They describe the silicon in the 5S as desktop class, and I don't think that's coincidental at all.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to give you one more chance to talk about business model and revenue models, but before I do that, SAP was quoted, the CEO, one of the co-CEOs of SAP yesterday, Bloomberg was drilling down on him and basically stating your growth in your stable product set of your legacy enterprise has been 2%, but your growth in the cloud has been 167%. So that is a significant note for all of us to really remember. So just please share with us, if you want, expand on the business and revenue models. And we're down to 3 minutes, and I want to leave 2 minutes for questions from the audience. I don't know if we have a microphone set up, so get ready to yell if we don't have the microphone.
So very briefly, I think the business models that underpin both the enterprise computing and client-side computing are both ripe for disruption. The enterprise side of things is really rotten. The economics of being an enterprise software startup are terrible. You can make the product, certainly the first iteration of the product, pretty straightforwardly, but then you have this long sales cycle. And I think the great thing about what's happening on cloud is it's really compressing the sales cycles. And a lot of the work that we do on our cloud infrastructure is to make it possible for enterprise software startups to get their stuff in front of consumers, telcos, and other enterprises, really in a very efficient, lightweight way. And on the mobile front, I think we're a bit stuck at the moment with advertising and in-app purchases as the sort of drivers of the day. One feeds Apple, one feeds Google. But I think from a development perspective, there remain good opportunities to connect more directly with customers, develop a more direct relationship with the customer, and cut out some of the sort of seamy underbelly of the advertising gig that I think customers are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with, right? They don't want their data sold on.
More of a direct relationship with the customer, that's what he said. That is great. So do we have a microphone? Could I ask the center guy,